this godless communism. Hitler's soldiers were rapidly marching into Russia and were actually being greeted with open arms by many of the Russian people. Welcome to Ukraine. We will be free once again. Open our churches and give us food. Hurrah! The land will be ours again. In the Kremlin, in Moscow, is it true that the 5-year plan strengthened our army but not enough to beat the Germans? And neither our people nor our soldiers are defending Russia as they should. We must get help from the US and Britain, and we must rally the people behind us by any means available. Once again, Red secret police terrorized the Russian people. But you have no proof. We do not need proof. We have heard that you do not care if the Germans defeat us. For that, you will be sent to a slave labor camp. The Russian army, too, was subjected to close scrutiny. Why fight for Stalin? He is just as bad as Hitler. Ivan, you know every army unit has a member of the secret police in it. Be careful what you say. To gain some favor among the people, Stalin relaxed religious restrictions. Henceforth, the Orthodox Church will have some freedom. Of course, it must still cooperate with the Communist Party. He also began a strong appeal toward Russian patriotism. Our aim is clear and honorable. We want to free Russia. We want to free our brothers from the German chains. Patriots, defend your fatherland. The constant propaganda met with strong results among the people. The radio said last night that it is not a question of defending communism. It is a question of defending Russia, our home. I will defend my home to the death. Long live the great homeland of Russia. But Stalin knew he needed help from other people too. The US and Britain know we want to spread communism all over the world. Because of this, they are suspicious of us. But we need more goods, particularly from the US. Ours have been destroyed and cannot be replaced. The Americans know we have a group called the Comintern. Its duty is to spread communism within free countries. Let us tell the world that we have disbanded the Comintern. Then their suspicions will disappear. Of course, the Comintern was not disbanded. Instead, its work was secretly continued. Because of the threat of Hitler and the lies of Stalin, the US began sending supplies to Russia. By war's end, the US would send more than $11 billion in war goods to the Russians. In the meantime, the US went to war against Japan and Germany. Russia, of necessity, became our ally. Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked. After a series of defeats, the Russian army, with its new supplies, began to defend its homeland with increased vigor. German attacks in Russia, 1942. Hitler's army suffered severe defeats. German retreats, 1943. The US and Great Britain defeated a large German army in Africa, invaded Italy, and began to gain the upper hand in the battle with Japan. Now is the time for us to begin the invasion. The Russian army on one side and ours on the other will be too much for Hitler to handle. On June 6, 1944, the largest armada in the history of warfare landed its troops in France under the command of General Dwight Eisenhower. Eisenhower's troops battled through France and into Germany from the west. Russian troops entered from the east. On May 7, 1945, Germany surrendered. Russia still had not decided to help the US and Great Britain in the war against Japan. Now, I see that the Russians are claiming they won the war against Germany. They ought to stop crowing and help us against the Japs, the same as we helped them against the Germans. Finally, only a week before Japan's surrender, it's been announced on the radio that Russia has declared war on Japan. That's no surprise. This way, Stalin can say he fought Japanese and claim some of their land as reward. On September 2nd, 1945, the Japanese surrendered to General Douglas MacArthur aboard the USS Missouri. The greatest war in the history of the world was over. The free world looked forward to peace forevermore. Most of the free world had forgotten the core of communist thought. The goal of communism is world domination by any means. During the war, a special meeting between the leaders of the US, Great Britain, and Russia had been held. Then we have your promise that the countries we free will be encouraged and helped to form democratic governments? You have my promise. But only if Russia is allowed the veto power in the new organization, the United Nations. You shall have it. Veto power is the ability to overthrow any suggestions by simply saying no. Immediately, Stalin set about breaking his promise, as a good communist always does. Now that they have freed our nation, why don't the Reds go home? Freed? Ha! They are staying so that they can force a Red government on us, one that will take all its orders from Moscow. Of course, after the founding of the UN, the veto power was used extensively by the Reds. No! No! By the end of 1947, East Germany, including part of the city of Berlin, Yugoslavia, Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary, Sakhalin and Kuril Islands, Poland, North Korea, Czechoslovakia, and Albania had come under complete communist control. Any citizens who opposed the Red governments forced on them were given the usual treatment. Some years at hard labor in Siberia ought to correct your thinking. Church leaders were imprisoned. The government today has decreed that the Primate of Hungary, Cardinal Mindszenty, will spend the rest of his life in prison. At home, Stalin became more and more disliked by those around him. If he least suspects anyone of being unfaithful to him, he has him shot. It seems the higher one gets in the party, the more likely he will be to face the firing squad. Suddenly, on March 5th, 1953, "Extra, extra, read all about it. Stalin dead. Extra, extra." Only those close to him know for sure whether Stalin died naturally or was murdered. Stalin's body was placed next to Lenin's in the tomb in Red Square in Moscow. The crowd that wended its way to the tomb now had the bodies of two communist heroes to look at. The rise of Nikita Khrushchev in the next installment of This Godless Communism.